Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Richard Schrieber Show. In today's episode, I meet with the very talented Ben Preston, who is a who's a fellow trailer music composer with Elephant Music, and he's a bit of a dark horse because also he is I want to say behemoth, but that makes him sound massive in the EDM, remix world, where he's racked up 100+ million streams. But the beauty of this conversation I have with Ben is he's incredibly open about suffering crippling panic attacks, and how he overcome those, and how it was actually all about finding his real passion. I hope you enjoyed the interview, guys. I know I did. It was awesome fun.
Okay.
Ben, welcome to the podcast. It's so nice to have you here.
It's a privilege to be on board after listening to so many of your trailer music podcasts right from the very beginning. So it's really nice to be on your fresh, sparkling new podcast.
Thanks, dude. Well, I appreciate you're lending your ears for me. So let's kick this off. Like in my other podcast, I like to ask people about what instruments they be, but the thing I like about podcasts is stories and finding out more about people and how they deal with their day-to-day life. So we're going to start this show with something surprising about yourself, Ben. So tell me something surprising about yourself that not many people would know.
Okay, now this is actually music linked, I'm afraid, but it goes back to years ago when I started to get into music production and making tracks. I made quite a few dance tracks and pop tracks in the early days, straight from university. And one thing I managed to get roped into was recreating "I'm Too Sexy" by Right Said Fred, doing the new modern version, which was it must have been about 10 years ago. And I was then actually asked, we were asked to go to watch the music video being made, because I'd made the music for it, and it was going to be the new "I'm Too Sexy," which you can find somewhere online, which I shouldn't be telling you because it's really quite embarrassing. Yes, made the whatever year it was version, and they asked me to go along to the music video, and ended up with another producer I was working with at the time, being in the music video, dancing around with Right Said Fred, and eventually we didn't realize how embarrassing this was actually going to be. Got carried away. And very luckily, down the line, they changed the video to be a completely different music video and started a new one on a fresh day. So I think, yes, I think my wife was quite upset at the prospect of what was about to come, and all our family and friends seeing me dancing around with Right Said Fred for "I'm Too Sexy" 2008 or whatever it was. I can't remember, to be honest, but there you are, some embarrassing intel.
So there is some amazing footage of Ben Preston dancing around with Right Said Fred somewhere.
Probably lurking online. I'm sure there's like an offcut from the old video somewhere.
Nice. That's amazing. That tops my being a guitarist in a Coke advert. That's awesome.
Oh wow.
I like that.
That's quite credible.
Well, yeah, but dancing with Right Said Fred, come on. That's amazing.
They're an interesting couple of chaps. Very, very friendly, actually.
Yeah. Well,
very interesting guys.
Right, dude. So you have a wide and varied career in the music industry, and what I'm really interested in is essentially the highs and lows. So let's start with your proudest moment of your career to date.
So I would say I'm going to split that into two answers, just because more recently now my main focus is working on trailer music and music for TV ads and computer games. But I've come from, as I briefly touched on, the pop music, sort of pop dance music background. So basically when I finished university, again, this was years ago now, I keep referring to this, but it must have been back in 2007. I just decided to put out my own track, and it was just a sort of a dancey track and had a bit of a twist, and self-released it through the platform AWOL, which is a distribution that you can find online and self-release your own music, and put this out there and just didn't really think much of it. Went on my honeymoon, as you do, and whilst on the honeymoon, I think it was the last few days, I looked online. I had about 17 emails from major record labels across the world saying, we want to license this track, and do you want to do this album deal, and would you like a publishing deal? And I was thinking, what on earth is going on? And it turned out, I think it was 3 weeks after it was self-released, on the American iTunes dance charts at the time, getting something in the dance charts on iTunes at this particular year was still quite a big thing. And it was number 5 on the US iTunes dance after it had been out for a little bit. And I hadn't really been looking at it. I thought this track's probably not going to do much. And yes, so it's a bit of a shock to the system. So, I mean, the proud moment there was having this track that was obviously blowing up in America. And I then signed a few separate licensing deals. And then I went on to sign a record deal with Psycho, who at the time had One Direction and Labyrinth were the other 2 artists. So there's and Little Mix. So there was me alongside these other artists to kind of be a kind of a Calvin Harris-y type thing. And yeah, so it was, the knock-on effect was quite a big thing. And I got a publishing deal with Warner Chappell, publisher at the time. And this is all off the back of just the self-release that I sort of really believed in a particular track.
So you did nothing except for release it?
Literally popped it on to AWOL. And it was one of those magic moments of I really did not do much else. I think must have sent it out to a few places. But yeah, just to see the success of that all of a sudden, and for the next few years, that really did set things up very luckily. And yes, so in that part of the industry, I'd say that was one of my proudest moments on that side of it. And on the trailer music side is actually something more recently. Is I had a placement for the Fast and Furious, this new film franchise. It was the final trailer for them a few weeks ago now. So and obviously, I mean, I was overjoyed with that placement because it's sort of what you dream of when you start in any part of the industry, but certainly with trailers. Trailer music is always something I wanted to do when I was very young and didn't ever find the pathway into trailer music. So to have that was a real happy point to have that achievement.
Dude, congratulations.
No, thank you very much. Well, you never know. It could be another 6 months now with absolutely nothing, but you got to keep trying.
Yeah, that's it. I just want to go back to that self-release. So what was the tangible effect of that on your life? Because it all sounds so grand, doesn't it? Sort of getting to number 5 on the US dance charts, signing a publishing deal, signing licensing deals. Like, what was the tangible effect of that on your life?
So, I mean, it was quite a shock to the system because, I mean, my wife and I had been married a couple of weeks before and we were about to come back home. And, I mean, we got back home and the first thing we really started to speak about, because I had lots of options on the table, luckily, from this self-release. And there was a lot of talk of live touring, major record deals, multiple album deals, and it was quite impactful. And there was quite a bit of anxiety quite quickly because you had this everything basically there on a series of emails and just choices to make. And signing in from an album deal to Sony, which was Psycho, Simon Cowell's label on Sony. That was the decision I made, and had an American arm as well. And yeah, I think the impact on life at that point, and then subsequently when I was up and running with that record deal, it actually went very badly for a bit because they decided to, once I signed all the paperwork, it didn't go badly. I mean, everything was fine, but they decided to change the artist name to something else. I wanted to start from scratch with a new alias and kind of me to be the vehicle behind it, even though the alias that I had released with had a track doing very, very well and getting good recognition in the US. It was a very strange thing to happen. And I think from that point onwards, actually, the record deal side of things, I think for me, just kind of went downhill a bit. And then they were asking about live touring, and they sent me off to Los Angeles for about 4 or 5 weeks with my manager, who manages me on the dance and pop side. Is a guy called Duncan, who also manages Tom Misch. I don't know if you've heard of Tom Misch. Chap doing very well on the sort of soulful, folky pop scene. Anyway, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but actually going out, being sent away to LA, and then all this talk of me going on tour for sort of 3 or 4 months at a time was quite a shock, and actually caused a huge amount of anxiety. And I experienced panic attacks for the first time as well.
Wow.
Just because, I mean, it was so overwhelming, you know, just going from being a humble producer in a small studio that I'd set up locally in Guildford, to suddenly all these options and being sent around the world. It was, you know, I like to keep my feet on the ground. I'm quite a country boy at heart. And the thought of just suddenly kind of dropping a lot of stuff and getting out there just after marrying and moving in with my wife, etc. Yeah, it was a weird time.
Wow.
Very strange.
So that's kind of, it's almost like one of those things where people say, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes, you know, you're going to go, yeah, I'm going to release my track. It's going to do really well.
Yeah.
But there are other things to take into account with that type of stuff, you know.
Oh, massively. And it really was that. I mean, I actually felt like that as soon as all these, it was very exciting initially, but I think about 2 weeks after having all the deals coming in and everything else, I had this sudden feeling like, is this really what I want to do? And I mean, it was. And I from going to university, I studied music production and started making music whilst I was at university with another chap called Nathan. And we actually got a record deal with Gut Records. I don't know if you know of or remember Gut Records. But that's how the Right Said Fred thing came about, because initially, whilst we were at university, we'd signed single deals to this label that was a big dance label. And it was off the back of that, really. I got into dance music just by realizing I could make it whilst at university with a friend, and the interest kind of spiraled off, and I started making my own music and releasing that through this platform, and that was it. It was all happened very quickly.
Wow. So you got all this fantastic attention from this single.
Yeah.
You signed to Psycho, Simon Cowell's US dance or US label. Is that right?
Well, it was Ultra Music with a US arm.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
No, it's confusing. It's very confusing, but it's all under Sony, the Sony roof. And there was one label looking after the American side and one label, and yes, the UK label were kind of rest of the world and the UK. You
signed to one of the big three. But
that was the dream from being at. Sorry, that was the dream initially from being a youngster from the age of 11, 12, getting my first bit of music equipment. I think I had a Korg Triton workstation. Was my first thing that I had. When I was, I think it was about 13, 14. And these were the dreams I had of just being an artist signed to a record label, and this was it. You know, this was the moment. But it's funny now that looking back, I think I just wasn't designed for this. You know, the person that's going to be the face of this product, and they were really trying to hammer on the image side of things as well. I wanted to have my image plastered over everything. So yes, it was bizarre, very bizarre. Wow.
Can we just go to the panic attacks?
Absolutely, let's bring them on.
A lot of people don't really know that they have had panic attacks.
Yes, that's
partly because no one talks about having panic attacks, and also they
Are you experienced?
Oh yes, I have had panic attacks before. They're kind of like the heart racing to the point where you then struggle to breathe, and then you're sick or you faint. That type of stuff, you know.
Exactly those things. Yes.
How many did you have of those, and how did you get past those? Because they can be incredibly debilitating and also incredibly shocking and terrifying in themselves.
Well, this is it. I'd very recently signed into these deals. I'd been away to Los Angeles. They sent me off, put me in some lovely hotels and all this stuff for 5 weeks, and went into all these lovely studios. I was in Will Smith's studios called Boom Boom Room, and it was an amazing studio. Like, just what you can imagine it being called. But it was very exciting, and I was there, but it was relentless every single day, long long sessions, I just had to come up with an idea every day that I was there. I came with a few ideas, but you're in there with these songwriters who are writing for Coldplay, One Direction, Rihanna, and you know, these are the ones right at the top of their game. So the pressure, it's a lot of pressure, and you're going in there trying to make music from scratch whilst they're sort of telling you what to do, and with these huge mixing desks, and trying to be in control of everything, creative at the same time, forcing creativity every day. For every single day of the time I was there, I was working every day. There wasn't a gap day. There was no rest. So yeah, it was quite an intense few weeks, very exciting. Don't know if you've seen a series called Lilyhammer in the past or heard of it. No, but there was, I mean, they had cast members from different series popping into the studios that some of the writers knew, and it was just madness. It was a really bizarre time. I think the writer of Family Guy turned up in one of the sessions. The guy who does the voices. It was
Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane, that's the one. Yes. So yeah, very bizarre times. But came off the back of this on a high because it was very exciting at the same time. I was playing a game of squash back here in Guildford area with a friend. Had a couple of strong coffees that day, and I've never had a panic attack or anything before. Was driving on the way back home, and I took a bit of a detour. Just decided to go off piste and went through the countryside, and just started to feel a bit of a pain in my stomach, and my heart started to race. And I thought, wonder if that's because I had a strong coffee earlier, and I thought, I just let it pass. And then the pain got quite intense, and my chest was sort of rigid, and I couldn't breathe properly. And I thought, oh my goodness, is this a heart attack? I played a very, very tough game of squash. I know it all sounds a bit silly, but on the drive home, all I could think of was, this is a heart attack. And eventually everything started to close down. So all my muscles started to seize up. My hands went into claws. Wow. And I couldn't open them. And then I couldn't see properly. I sort of started to get this tunnel vision. And by the time I pulled up outside this pub, and I had to just literally park my car in the road, I left my car across the road, got out of the car and just lay down on the floor outside a pub, and some guy was smoking next to me, and I can remember a cigarette ash falling on my face. Oh, and this guy looking at me thinking, what on earth's going on? He thought I was having a heart attack, and I said to him I was having a heart attack, and then I couldn't talk, and my mouth sort of all the mouth muscles or muscles around the mouth seized up, and I couldn't say anything, I couldn't see anything, could barely breathe, and I was obviously having a huge panic attack. So they called an ambulance, and yeah, they stayed with me for 2.5 hours for me to come back round.
Wow.
Just constantly reassuring me that I'm having a panic attack and I'm not dying. But all I could think of was, this is it, I'm dying. I've had a heart attack and this is the world closing in. Yeah. So it was a very severe panic attack. And the problem with that is because I didn't know it was a panic attack, it was manifesting on itself and getting worse every couple of minutes, because all I could think of was the worst and what on earth's going on. And after this period, then I went back home and was fine. And 2 days later, I had one on the way to the studio again. I had a studio about 10 minutes drive from where we lived. And again, I lay down on the floor on the side of a road, and an ambulance came again and actually took me to hospital this time. And they did checks on me and everything was fine. So yeah, a couple of call outs on the ambulance front, embarrassingly. And after this, I had this generalized anxiety where, it just manifested, and for probably 6 months to a year, I had to really, really learn to control this panic that would keep coming on from various things. It would come off from this point, from drinking coffee, doing exercise, or driving on A roads and motorways. Because when I had the panic attack, I had strong coffees that day. I'd just done exercise, and I was driving at the time I had it. So all these things, it's funny how it's all in your subconscious, how it manifests anyway. So yes, I had a period of really desperately trying to get myself better, and thought, this is it. Now I became agoraphobic. I didn't want to leave the house. And the record deal, of course, at the time, everything became very difficult, because they had to give me, they were very good at this point, and they gave me a good few months to try and get myself together. Wow. So that's it. And from learning breathing, I tried CBD. Is it CBT? CBT.
Yes. So cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I did try that, and I didn't didn't help me personally at the time. It helps lots of other people. But I really found the only way, and this is how I do a lot of things in life, was just to study online and with books like absolute crazy, and go on Facebook groups and see how people are, just to find out people's methods and get an average idea of their methods on tackling this. And I found the best thing for me was a very simple thing to get me out of a panic attack, was a breathing technique of literally slowly breathing through the nose into the stomach whilst you're relaxing all your muscles, and then just breathing out of your mouth, letting the air come out, again focusing on your stomach. I don't know, for as long as you could let air out, and then hold your breath at the end of your intake and then your outtake. And just by repeating that, if I was driving in the car and it was coming on, it does something to your system that helps to bypass, I don't know whether it's something to do with the adrenaline being able to overtake, or I'm not sure quite how it works, but it was the best thing for me to calm down. And you'd be calm. I mean, you'd be sitting there, and it's all subconscious related. So you never know when it's really going to hit you, and it's almost impossible to control. So I know you've obviously had experience yourself of panic attacks, but this is, it's been with me for some time, and I've had it on and off since, but kind of knocked it on the head quite quickly by adopting the same breathing techniques, and little things like having a fizzy drink with me would help, because actually burping helps you to come out of this anxious panic state as well. So I'd have a fizzy can of Coke or something, and quickly have a few sips of that, and it was, as soon as you start burping it, or eating and drinking are good things to do, because I think it's the subconscious again. It takes that subconscious way of focusing on this fight or flight situation and on digestion or something else. I mean, so many little things and tactics like this. I found I've really had to find, really.
There's some amazing things there. I mean, firstly, those panic attacks sound horrifying. Serious. They are serious panic attacks.
It's the most horrendous. Yeah, it's horrible. Really, really horrible.
But like as you've shown, and as I shown when I had mine, mine weren't nearly as bad as that, by the way. But no one tells you what they are. No one tells you what to look out for. So when it starts happening to you, the first thing you do is panic because you don't know what the hell is going on with your body, and what and then it just cycles and snowballs into something much worse. So I didn't do CBT for panic attacks. I studied CBT for depression, and for me, it wasn't necessarily effective in curing anything. It was effective in giving me an awareness of my thought patterns. But going to your breath work, breath work is one of those things that is kind of like an across the board amazing thing that so many people overlook, because you're like, why would breathing fix it?
Well, that was my attitude before I did it.
It does. I practice a 6-3 breathing pattern. So you breathe in for 6, hold for 3, breathe out for 6, hold for 3.
It's very similar.
As a way to kind of bring myself down, or even just focus. It's not necessarily like I'm panicking, so I'll do my breathing. I'll just sit down and go to do some breathing, so I'm focused in the moment. So any of you guys have ever experienced any of this anxiety, like look into breath work. It does really, really help. And what you say about
definitely
what you say about food and drink. My wife used to teach hypnobirthing, and one of the main things about hypnobirthing is teaching people to understand that your brain doesn't know the difference between a real or imagined thought. So as in a real thing happening to your body or a thought. Your body will still produce the same chemicals if you think about a stressful situation. So what's happening is, you get into this situation where you're stressing and everything, and your body starts producing all the stress hormones, and it starts reacting to that stressful situation. But the eating was obviously kind of taking the brain's attention away from that stress creating thought.
That's it, exactly.
Oh, dude!
Arm yourself with a pack of biscuits and a can of Sprite. if they even do cans of Sprite these days. No. But I mean, the problem is you can the frustrating thing is it's the blessing and the curse. But alcohol, especially beer, because a lager, because it's fizzy, that can be a very good combination, because you would relax a little bit whilst the bubbles are giving you that burping situation, which helps you out of this sort of state. But so I did get kind of caught up in that a little bit. I didn't become an alcoholic, but that became something that I kept reaching to because it would calm things down. But I think you would often feel the next day it would make the panic side of things worse. So it was always better to keep away from alcohol as well, in that, using it for that purpose.
Yeah, it can become a crutch, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it also interferes with your sleep, you're more tired the next day, and
it's just
snowball happens. Dude, so you went from your proudest moment to something very, very dark, very, very quickly.
Yes, yeah.
So let's take a few steps back. Back to little Ben. So not like that. What was your proudest? No, wait, no, that's the right question. I'm reading the wrong question, Ben. About your earliest creative memory.
So, yes, as soon as you said that, it made me think straight to one particular occasion where, coming back to this called Triumph, which I was so excited about. My dad took me out to Cambridge, where we lived, Cambridge area, years ago. We're in Surrey now, but I grew up around Essex and Cambridge territory. It's kind of flitting between the two. And they had a kind of a music production. I can't really call it a music production shop. It was a shop with lots of synthesizers and music production equipment, and there weren't many about at the time. And I, very, very fortunate at the time that my parents got me a Korg Triton workstation, which was this huge. I don't know if you're aware of the Korg Triton series. It was basically a huge keyboard, and you could sequence within the keyboard itself. So you had these parameters with, bars of 8 bars. You could quantize the MIDI, and you'd have a bunch of the different instruments, and much like we do now, but just all in the keyboard, but a very tacky version of what we can now do these days with lots of sampler instruments and everything else.
Is that like the original Teenage Engineering OP1?
If only. The OP1 was amazing. I've never dabbled with the OP1. Do you own one yourself?
No. I was graced by its presence by Guy Jones. He came to do some recording with me and Vikram Goody for our school protege, and yes. I was like, "What's that little case you've got there on the desk?" He was like, "Oh, I just bought my OP1, just in case." I was like, "Can I play?"
That's what I mean. The good thing is, Guy has moved nearer to me. I've heard quite recently. We've been chatting, and he's now in my neck of the woods. So, I say my neck of the woods. He's yonder Sussex, I think, going to be, and I'm Surrey, so we are border buddies. Yeah. Yes, we're going to try and hook up. So now I know he's got an OP1. That can open up all sorts of doors of discussion.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, dude, bring your OP1.
Yeah. Okay. So this was like a huge sort of slightly more boring version of the OP1. It was, but this, oh goodness, this must have been. I'm trying to think of the date. Not the date, the year this would have been. I mean, we're talking. Gosh, I think we're talking. Yeah, noughties. I think 2001, 2000. Anyway, I had this keyboard, and you can make up your own music. And in terms of the earliest creative moment, I was obsessed with Harry Potter because it was around the time that came out, and I was quite young at the time. And I became obsessed with John Williams and the music. And I mean, if I told my friends at school this when I think I was 13, 14, I would have been bullied probably and head down the toilet territory. So I kept this whole life to myself about making music in my bedroom. And at the time, everyone else, all my other friends were into football and sports and girls and everything else. It was that territory at secondary school. And there was me just, on a Friday night, trying to remake the Harry Potter theme tune. And actually, I spent a long time on perfecting this thing. And I just had the best time. But I made this, I decided I did copied the theme of Harry Potter theme tune and made it into my own thing. And And then my dad came in, bless him, and he was so impressed. I think he shed a tear and said,
nice.
"You know, we've got to send this up. We should get this up to. We should try and get this up to the studios and find out." And I couldn't let that happen. But it was definitely an early moment of creative, exciting times in my life. That was my first proper piece I put together with all the different layers and strings and everything else. So yeah, much of what I do is funny. Thinking about what I do today, more on the trailer media music side, that's what I was doing. I was doing that sort of thing from the age of 13 every single day. And that's kind of how the sequencing and composing started, really. I mean, I came from a classical background, playing piano, saxophone, and eventually drums as well. But this was, the first kind of doing everything in the box.
See, I'm glad you said that you had some kind of classical background, because if you hadn't have said that, you would have been some kind of boy genius who has got this sort of awkward, clunky, naughty's workstation. Just going to pop on some film score and reorchestrate it with my ears. You know, that is.
And there was a bit of background. It's definitely.
Yeah, that's impressive. You know. Well, firstly, John Williams is an absolutely amazing orchestrator, and it's not easy listening with regard to active listening, is it?
No, it really isn't. It's it's just his music, the way he goes with his musical direction is, well, it just works, doesn't it? It's such a stamp and an identity, his sound. It's difficult to achieve that, especially when you're scoring for such a huge orchestra, and to be creative and have all that to then interpret into the whole thing, and obviously have it all recorded live. I mean, obviously we do that to a point with trailer music, but again, a lot of the time using sampler instruments. But the thought of constantly putting that out to the live orchestra and having to go down that road, it just seems so overwhelming. So I've always been fascinated. Yeah,
John Williams is quite an enigma. I mean, he's sort of the older school. He still does everything on piano. He doesn't use a computer at all for his composing. So, which kind of makes sense, I suppose. And kind of, you can kind of understand. You go, oh, okay, it's a different way of working. It's not like all on computer, transferring it to score.
Yeah.
I suppose there is going to be several lines of copyists involved. But okay, so let's go from like Ben secretly reorchestrating Harry Potter. You've had some background in piano, you've had some drums. Where did you go from there? So what, you were 13? How did you sort of pursue your...
So from then on, I mean, I made this into sort of my weekly life. I would just make music, and my parents were very encouraging. There's a huge amount to thank them for along the whole journey, because I think with friends' parents, I had other friends who were musicians as well, but their parents were trying to steer them into going for, I guess, what they would see as reliable jobs at the time, and pushing them into different territories and saying, "Oh, music's just for fun. It's great you're doing it, but you should do this." But my parents were constantly pushing, saying, "No, they thought that I'm trying to say this without sounding pretentious, but they thought they could see enough talent in me as a youngster playing the piano, which I was probably like every other musical person at that age. But so they wanted to nurture it, and they pushed, and then I sort of stumbled across music production and thought, it was at the time where Daniel Bedingfield, at this age of 13, 14, he did that.
You got to get through this.
Yeah. Exactly all the little beatboxy bits, and I was obsessed with this whole thing of doing it in your bedroom, and this guy's made this song and it's become number one. And so it was that time of this change of being able to make a whole track yourself. So I, from then on, just kept learning, eventually got a secondhand Mac, and then started to use, I think I started with GarageBand actually, and then onto Logic eventually. And just, from the age of 13, I got up to sixth form. And at the time, there were a very, very small number of sixth form colleges in the country back in 2003, I think it was, that had music production as an A-level. because I was at a different school in the A levels. I mean, most schools didn't have this as an A level, so I moved schools for sixth form and went to a place called Hills Road in Cambridge, who had a music production A level course, and it was brilliant. It just carried. They had Cubase, and I was used to Reason and Logic that I'd sort of gotten myself along the way. And yeah, it was 2 years of being able to do music production as a subject, which was, I was like a kid in a sweet shop, but it was the best thing ever. So I did music as another subject as well. So I had the music and music production. So I had the kind of classical side going on, studying all that part of it, and then production. And met some really interesting people along the way. And by the time I got through the sixth form, I had a friend from sixth form told me about this college in Guildford, which is kind of a music production college where you can get, instead of doing a diploma, you can do a diploma course there, diploma as well. But it did a BA degree course as well for music production. Similar situation, because it was a fairly recent thing, this music production being an education thing.
Was this the ACM?
It was the ACM, yes, in Guildford, the Academy of Contemporary Music.
We are fellow graduates then.
You're joking. Which ACM?
Yeah, I went to the ACM to study guitar.
Oh my goodness, how have we not spoken? That's mad. That's amazing. I never realised you went to ACM.
2002, I think. 2002.
Wow. So we missed each other by 3. Well, I was there 3 years later.
Well, there we go.
Small world. But again,
I was there with Newton Faulkner.
Oh, you were that year, because I always wondered what year he was, because I think then Ed Sheeran was there probably in between us again, I think, or something, or maybe a year later. I don't know. But I think this was the thing, is I'd heard of a few names that had been to the college, and they had this. It was very funky, wasn't it? The building. It was.
Oh yes.
Lots of colours, and when you go there, when I went to look around, it was such a no-brainer compared to some of the more traditional music production courses you could do. You're probably familiar with the Tongmeister course have you heard of in Surrey University?
Yep.
Which was obviously, it's Guildford as well. So there were these two very different styles of course, but I think for me, because they did a lot more about production all within one unit, at ACM, that's why I decided to go that route, because they were taking a real contemporary stance on production as opposed to just sticking to mixing and big mixing desks and everything. They were doing all the stuff I was already doing from the age of 12, 13. So yes.
The ACM was kind of an enigma at that time. The BIM institutes hadn't really established themselves yet, and I think it was just the ACM in Guildford. So for those listeners who aren't based in the UK, I don't know whether this advert goes globally, but there's this beer, it's Carlsberg, isn't it? And their advertising campaign in the UK, I don't know whether it's global or anything, but it's basically like, if Carlsberg did this. So it's like,
I use that all the time as well, that phrase.
If Carlsberg did holidays, and the holidays are all like so easy and amazing and cool, and the ACM at that time was kind of like if Carlsberg did a music production school. You'd walk in, it had cool music, it was all dark, there was like metal everywhere with like neon lights and strip lights, and it just looked like a music video. So you'd walk in and you're like, if Carlsberg did music production courses, this would be the place. Admittedly, other places have cotton onto this, and maybe I wouldn't be so swayed by lighting these days, but
that was it. I think it was probably 90% lighting that got me into that place, that drew me in.
Yeah. So
it's really interesting you went to the same place. But it was great. There was a great tutor there. Did you have Anthony Greaves yourself when you were there? He was a head of production, but he was probably there whilst you were there. But you did the guitar course.
Yeah. Correct? So as you know about guitarists, we're all massive egotists who are incredibly self-involved. So any names outside of the guitar group, I was just like, I don't even care. So yeah,
I think I was like that in the music production course as well.
Yeah.
We kept very insular. So that was it. I think the good thing about the course there, it was a BA degree, honours degree, but it was 2 years. They condensed it into a 2-year degree, so it was the best of all worlds because you could be out of university quickly with your degree, but then try and get out into industry quicker. And they had a business development centre there, which is how the Gut Records thing came about when I was making dance music at ACM. And that's how all the record label stuff started to kick off. And actually, I forgot to mention as well, which is, again, it's not me trying to blow my trumpet and sound like an arrogant arse, but I started off by doing trance music, because I was doing dance music, but before I did the more poppy stuff, I did a lot of trance music for Armin van Buuren and Tiesto, the two big trancey names. Wow. I did a lot of stuff for their record labels when I was just left university. And that became something I was doing. Just every track I'd send to them and they would pay a particular fee, and I could kind of do this every week. I was choosing a different record label, and then I came up with a different pseudonym, so I wasn't saturating one name, so I could make more money. So it was kind of like, Ben Preston here, and then I had Second Left with some other alias, and spinning them all off each other. But I did this for a little while, and then worked with another producer and kind of came up with this concept: why don't we make a trancey pop track? And it became this. It became this song. We had a singer on it. It was his wife was a singer as well, and then Roll Deep. The artist Roll Deep got involved with it, and then they did a load of rapping vocals on this, and it became this thing which was like a trance pop thing, and it was this new thing, and it became a #1 hit in the UK for 3 weeks. So
wow,
not to mention that, but
what was it called? Gonna have to put a link to this in the show notes.
Roll Deep, Good Times. And now listening back to it, it makes me cry with how awful the production sounds. But it's like a Euro poppy sounding track. But there were quite a few people involved by the end of it. Obviously, but the whole Roll Deep are a collective of rappers, and there was, I think, about five of them, including Wiley was the sort of head of the gang, and then you had the singer, and then you had the other producer, and it was quite a few people involved. But that was a bit of a knock-on effect, and how I got to meet my manager Duncan for the pop and dance music was off the back of that. And then it's just, there's so many different things. If I start talking about all the various things that I've been doing over the years, it would be a very long conversation, I'm afraid. But we're touching on these things as we go.
Well, the nice thing is we've kind of got ourselves up to speed with your Proudest moment.
Yes.
So now we get how you're able to produce a piece of music, upload it, and okay, so we got there, right? We've had your earliest memory with the Korg. Now, we may have heard this already, but I mean, there may be a lower point, but can you talk to us about when you have been at your lowest emotionally?
I can, because I'd say definitely the last year and a half. I mean, obviously for most people, has obviously been probably the toughest time for a lot of people that they've ever had to go through.
Yep.
With the pandemic and the shutting down of work and family, not being able to see family and illness and everything else. But I've definitely hit a low point, and it's a mixture of health and stage of life really for us, and work. I mean, this was me sort of transitioning into getting into the trader world, but work in the sort of pop dance area as well dried up at the time the pandemic hit. So so I'm throwing a lot of things at you there. I'm trying to think of how to start it, but right at the beginning of the pandemic, about a month beforehand, we had a baby, which was interesting timing to bring a little one into the world. So I mean, that's stressful enough in itself. We've got a toddler as well, so we had a 2.5-year-old that's full of great banter. I mean, she was lovely, but it's an interesting age. And then this little one came along, and then a month and a half later, this pandemic hit. So we're sort of locked down. Luckily, I put this studio in my garden in the November before, so it was at the best time possible. So I could work from home, but basically all work had basically dried up. a lot of the regular remix work and music production work I was doing for major labels, everything just sort of shut down. And with a new one, we've moved house fairly recently as well. So all the sort of overheads of mortgage, new baby, kids, childcare, it threw us into a bit of disarray. And then a few months later, it seems like I have had COVID basically, and subsequently long COVID, which has been incredibly debilitating. This is all whilst getting into the trailer music world. So work shut down. I decided to focus all of my time in making lots and lots of music for trailer publishers, and yes, it was a very bizarre time of obviously doing a lot of this work, but that was all going into the system at the time, and it was very quiet spell for months on end. So I'd have to find various production jobs here and there that did pop themselves up eventually, and doing albums for library companies as well that would pay per track as well. So that was a nice bit of extra income that I was lucky to find. Yeah, I think the health side of things, and I'm still struggling with it now to a point, but it's definitely a lot better. But the long COVID side of things, I mean, I'd walk the dog for I don't know, 5-10 minutes, then have to go to bed for about 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
So it had such an effect on energy for quite some time, and then I couldn't breathe properly. So I was in here trying to make music for, I must have been 3 or 4 months. So I'd just be really trying to breathe properly every day, and had to stand up and go outside. And then I had various tests. I had tests on my lungs, scans, camera down the throat, lots of reflux problems. Wow. It's very interesting for all you listeners to hear all my ailments over the year. But having a camera down your throat is quite interesting. I mean, it's that sort of thing in life. I always thought, right, that's the one thing I want to avoid my whole life, is having a camera down my throat when I'm awake. But actually, you know, yeah, I wouldn't knock it. It's until you try it. It wasn't as bad as I thought. I mean, it happened so quickly. It's fine. But now I've been poked and prodded so many times. Yes, I think we've kind of landed on just this. Yeah, the long COVID has manifested, and it's kind of stayed with me for a year plus, and it's only just starting to come out of the woods a bit now. But it's left me with, I've got just reflux issues, which is a hiatus hernia. Don't know if you've heard of one of those, but
yep,
that's something that's occurred since as well, and this has all been linked into the problems I've had with that. So I have recovered from it. Yes, it's definitely been the most challenging time of my life, because it's been this debilitating whilst having the kids the ages that we had them, and my wife has had to just do so much stuff for the kids and everything. Whilst she's been off work for the little one, and then she was a nurse, so she didn't want to go back into work when she was at the end of maternity leave, because the hospitals were obviously full of coronavirus, and it was a very, very scary time. And because we had a baby, she didn't want to go back too soon, and we just agreed, you know, let's just stay off work. And she's off work at the moment and thinking of going back at some point, or a career change. But it's just become this way, and just the extra pressures of all the financial pressures, obviously being a music composer, producer, and obviously a lot of work dying up at the beginning. It was a very scary time. So there was the stress of all of that. There was the health. There was the baby. We've moved house recently, so all the extra outgoings. So I'm not meaning to be woe is me, because I know lots of listeners and lots and lots of people, well, millions of people have been going through much, much worse than this. And this is trivial in comparison. But as a person who has experienced, it's been pretty frightening times. But fortunately, after putting a lot of music into out there into various publishers and trying lots of things out, and just putting a lot of music out there, really, it started to pay off towards the end of last year. All of a sudden, everything it was in the beginning of last year. In the last couple of years, there were certain placements for trailers. I had my first trailer placement was with Pusher and Silo. They were a joint venture at the time, and that was for Wreck-It Ralph 2. And I remember, and that was actually before the pandemic had hit. But I remember it's always, I always find out at 3 a.m. with the trailer. I don't, I'm sure you've had so many trailer placements, you're probably aware, but with those particular companies, both being in America, I'd have a message at 3 a.m. And it's like, here's the trailer, and you find out 5 months after you've made the piece of music. So anyway, I'm going off the point again here, but it was towards the end of last year, it really started to kick off, because by then I'd spent a lot of the time that I wasn't working on pop and dance music, putting a lot of stuff in there. And then I think October, November, all of a sudden there's sort of trailers sort of popping off a bit more on the regular, and adverts happening via trailer companies as well.
So I'm going to jump in here, Ben.
Yeah, please do. I'm guessing.
Because we've kind of touched on your lowest point, which was, having a toddler and a newborn, having just moved house, going into lockdown, half, if not more, of your work drying up, and then you getting ill.
Yeah.
Now, each one of those things is stressful enough, because actually we both had children at similar times. So my third, Phoebe, was born a few months before your second, because that's where I think we reached out to each other, or you reached out to me on Instagram at that point. Yep. Just saying, hey, and we chatted about that, and we were like, oh, we've got kids. Oh, they're cool. Yeah. So, and then we've kind of gone from that point. How did that affect your creativity? I mean, on a day-to-day basis, how did that affect your creativity? I mean, all of those sort of stress can shut down creativity incredibly. But you've said about sort of ploughing on, just keeping on. How did you handle that creatively?
Well, it's interesting. I think amongst all of this, on the flip side of this very dark time, I think when the pandemic did kick off, I hate to say it, but there was an excitement part of this as well, where all our kids, you lock the doors, don't you? You're battening down the hatches.
Yeah.
And yeah, really just, it felt like it's this apocalyptic things going on, but you're sort of, focusing on where can we get food from, and finding little local food suppliers, and we can get this. We actually ended up going from, obviously we could never book a Sainsbury's or a Tesco slot, so we found these little independent farm shoppy type places that would deliver. And someone lived at the end of our road who worked with a company who used to supply all their really lovely food to restaurants around London. That stopped, so they were supplying to all the locals, and they would just drop it off at the end of the day, a little hamper of these lovely goodies. So these small kind of exciting things were popping off. We were all in the house together, and the weather started to get good. As in the spring, it was a very good spring, and the studio here I just had it built in the garden a few months before. So whilst I wasn't feeling ill at this point at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a real excitement of being kind of locked in the studio and knowing the family was safe in the house. We could kind of source these different things out, food and drinks wise, and there was that part of it. There was this kind of flicker of excitement, and I think that I don't know what it was, but I had a lot of creative. It gave me a real creative flow at the start, and I did whenever I was in here. I would be focusing on. I don't know. I've got really into horror music and dark sort of horror trailer music at this point, and yeah, just got stuck into writing lots and lots of horror music because it was a dark time. But I think that may have helped as well. The fact that it was quite a sinister time, and horror music seemed like the thing to be jumping on. And one of those tracks actually recently with Elephant Music has landed a trailer for Old. The film Old, which you've also had trailer for as well. So,
in fact, we landed a trailer together recently, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
Yes, that was it. So that was actually one of the first tracks that I made, I think, at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's interesting to see how that's translated. The feelings of the dark feelings, but that excited. I'm in my studio amongst the world tumbling down, just making a horror thing. And then, but creativity. I really actually didn't struggle at the start. I think it was when I couldn't breathe properly for quite a period of time, I mean, it would physically stop me from being able to sit here and just crack on. So I'd have to sort of get out and walk around quite a lot, try and just give my chest as much space to expand as possible.
Yep.
So yeah, along the way it was mixed creativity, but I think it did help creativity in a big way as well. And I think by listening to your podcast, that's what I started to do at the beginning of lockdown. And then as that unfolded, that was a huge part of a creative spur. It really was. And it's not just because I'm on your show. It was a fundamental point in getting excited about making trailer music, because I couldn't find anything anywhere that was really informative in such a way about trailer music, which was down to earth and that someone was talking about it on a podcast. So the Trailer Music podcast has been fantastic. It really has. It's helped. It definitely helped kick me into gear many times during this pandemic.
Well, thank you. And I didn't pay him to say that, by the way.
No, really did. But I was there from the very first one you made. I was there listening right from the beginning, because I stumbled across your first episode just as you started, accidentally. And that's how I found out about yourself. And since,
woo, go podcasts.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's the as I've said, so Ben and I had a little chat before we started recording, and he was saying how much the podcast has helped, which has been just lovely to hear, Ben, because it's one of the main reasons I've really enjoyed doing this. I get a warm and fuzzy feeling knowing that me talking has helped somebody.
But it's not just that. I think it's I have to say, it's your approach to the podcast right from the beginning. I think it was a very down-to-earth approach. Sometimes you'd be on a walk and getting into the countryside, and it was, it wasn't a pretentious thing. It was you just kind of being very straightforward and honest about the industry, and just being positive about a lot of things that we all struggle with as composers and producers. I think for me, it's this continuous, you get into these ruts of I guess it's a writer's block, really. When you're making this stuff day in, day out, and you just want something to break it up. And I know you can obviously go for a walk or take your mind off this sort of thing altogether. But so I wouldn't have thought naturally to go and listen to a trailer music podcast, because I would have thought, no, I want to get a clear head. I don't want to think about the work I'm doing. But actually, you managed to tackle both. So you managed to give this this headspace and this kind of calm approach to it, which is really enjoyable to have going at the same time as it being an educational thing, specifically on trailer music, as that is. But then it was bringing different people in, and you'd hear their stories as well, which was incredibly useful and informative. And it's people that I would look up to and aspire to be like in my musicality and workflow. And yeah, just hearing the interviews was another great thing you started to do as well, and bring into the series. So yeah, it's actually just been a lifesaver for creativity in trailer music, definitely, because you can get very bogged down with doing the same thing with the same structure and the same formula a lot. Even though I love it, it's reinvigorates the excitement for it.
Dude, you've firstly, thank you very much. Very sweet of you to say thank you, and I'm glad it helped, especially if that was, as your lowest emotional point. I'm very happy to hear that it did help, because that was the intention behind it. Because I always wanted to have content that I could digest when I first started out, but it was very, back in those days, it wasn't so easy to find people dealing with this type of stuff.
Yeah,
composers being open. In fact, there still aren't many composers, when you think about how many composers there are, being open and honest about stuff.
No.
And one of the reasons I want to start this show is for musicians to be open and honest about life around the music. The struggles we all have, the highs, the lows, and how does it affect us as writers and as people? So it's very interesting to hear about your story, you kind of rise into the dance world and all those terrifying panic attacks, and then this point where actually the pandemic almost forced you to shift into trailer music and production music.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, that was it, and that's, you know, it's been a blessing for that reason.
Right, so let's talk about you now.
Sure.
One of my favorite things when I was sort of in my 20s, my wife and I used to get the papers. At that point in our lives, we were under this kind of idea that we needed to educate ourselves about the world, you know, which now looking back at it, I'm like, what a waste of time. Because it used to make me angry or scared, which is my personal opinion about most news.
Well, the BBC News app is my Achilles heel, just the same.
Yeah, dude, get that off your phone. That's going to be
get off your phone. Ruined my life for the last year.
I don't read or watch or listen to any news because it stresses me out, and all it does is create negative emotions in me. And I'm good at creating those myself, so I don't need anyone else triggering that. But one of the little lights was there was I think it was the Sunday Times magazine. One of the new Sunday magazines had like this magazine in it, which at the back of it was interviews with people, you know, writers, chefs, TV show presenters, or, you know, you name it, actors, all manner of famous people. And it was basically them walking you through a typical day. And it always fascinated me. I love hearing about people's day and how people live their day-to-day life. And I've noticed that, you know, with my communities and my students, that they often ask me about my day-to-day life, my structure, my routine, productivity, and stuff like that. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your day, like not like a typical day, because when you go for a typical day, you kind of like, you give me a primed version, you know, a general version. I don't want general. I want specifics, Ben. You know, so here, let me
specific day.
Let me just go grab my pad. I should have typed these onto the computer because I can't see anything. It's quite dark in here. Okay, so one of my things, right? People forget how important sleep is.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, as a musician, specifically a guitarist, you know, you get kind of labeled with this, like, I don't want to say rock star, but, you know, like, he's a musician. He's only going to be up late at night. No, I like my early nights, you know. So, Ben, what time do you actually go to bed?
Well, thanks to young children, my bedtime is anything from 9:30. Actually, do you know what? The last 2 nights have been 8:30, but I'll explain that in a minute. It's another really fun health fact. But no, generally speaking, I'd say because of children, yes, 9:30, anywhere between 9:30 and 10:30. Depends. My wife Beth and I, if we're watching something that has drawn us in and really drawn us in, like what was the oh my goodness, the chessy thing recently. Have you seen the
Queen's Gambit?
There it is, Queen's Gambit, which was super. As much as I'm not a huge fan of Jeremy Clarkson's Farm.
Yeah, see, I'm not a fan of him either, but I have heard it's good. But
it is very good. More because it's watching farmers. I'm not going to go into it, but watching farmers and what they have to deal with in this country, especially during tough rainy seasons and pandemics, is quite fascinating, and you get a real insight into what I've never really seen on that front. But so if we get a good series like these two, then, you know, easily make 9:45 or 10 to 10 maybe, or
Sheila Bones.
Yes, I think thanks to children, that's definitely the curfew.
Yeah, I am, and my wife also a similar situation. So our kids are 7, 4, and 1. Usually between 9 and 10 bedtime. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's getting late, Richard.
It is.
Anything for the podcast. No, this is fine. I intend to have a later night's night, because it's been a good few nights with the little one sleeping through a bit more now. But it's been nights where he's been up every hour and a half. So we're in a good place now. So it's much better.
Those are tough times, and the sleep deprivation wreaks havoc on your mood.
Yeah, it does indeed. Yes.
Right. So what time are you most productive?
I am most productive at, I would say, it used to be around 11 o'clock during that would be a good coffee time. Quite traditionally, 11's is. So having a coffee at 11 o'clock, that would really kickstart me into that part of the day. But I actually find now, if I get up, the earlier I can get up, if I can get out and walk the dog first thing in the morning, 7:30, get the kids to nursery and get back in for sort of 8:30, that for me now is becoming the new productive time to kick things off, which is weird because that would never work years ago. But I find now being up early, almost ahead of the curve. I find if I started at 7, I would be even more productive because you feel like you're a step ahead of everybody else. You know, that starts at 9 in my head, so you feel like this is the time to crack on. So I'd say yes, the earlier the better. But these days, probably 9, half 9 is the sweet spot right now.
Yeah. Again, similarly.
Yep.
Because obviously getting the kids off to school and nursery.
It's the child thing going on.
It is, yeah. Between 9 and half 11. So because we have lunch at half 11. Early lunch.
Is that when the kids are at home, or is that when they're?
Almost even now when the kids aren't there, it's like lunch at half 11. Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, early bird catches the.
Oh, I just love food. I think that's the problem. And so this is really nice because this kind of leads on beautifully to say, like, your most productive time is now your mornings. It's now 9-ish for a good couple of hours. What are those mornings like? What do they look like?
More in the studio and productivity, or just I suppose that was it. You wouldn't be asking for the weather or which is very boring. Look at the weather, what it's going to do, and then I will look at a bunch of trailers. Actually, just kind of search a few trailery bits online and see what's happening. Probably once or twice a week. And then make sure I've got a good snack and a coffee ready to go, really. And as soon as that coffee's down, it's all systems go. You know, I mean, there's a whiteboard over here. Not that I don't know if it's probably not going to be visual, is it? For the
I shall describe. Ben has walked over and grabbed a whiteboard, which I can't see anything on because of the light.
Hold on. There we go.
Oh yes, that's a massive to-do list.
So you can see this. This is what I hidden from the screen just because it's an eyesore.
Yes, but it's an essential eyesore.
I'm not so sure. Well, yes. I mean, I am obsessed with having things written down next to me. I've actually found this. I should have meant that's good to mention actually, because by doing lots of tick boxes next to things that I either want to try and achieve, or I'm in the process of doing, or sometimes I get wind of a track that is being cut to picture, and I'll even put those in the list, even though that's the worst thing you can do sometimes. I'll put, if it's being cut, if I've gotten wind, luckily, that you've had a stem request for a particular trailer, of which there's probably umpteen stem requests from other composers, as we know. I would still put it there in a list and just think, little question mark next to the tick box, and just put it there. Just keeps you happy. If I've had a stem request, in my mind, it's a result for me in itself that someone's been excited enough about the music that they've wanted to request the stem. So that helps, I think, again, hearing those things. And sometimes publishers really don't want to disclose that information, but I think it actually does help, even though you can have the letdown of not getting the job. That is a little nuggets that can, get me excited about making more music, either in that vein or not. But anyway, the whiteboard is full of other. I'm trying to think of, just see what else is on it. Hold on.
Are they themed? Because there were columns.
There are, yes. I mean, you've got a couple of publishers. It's kind of some jobs that have happened and jobs to invoice for, and then you've got jobs that you hope that you'd get one day, or just things to aim for, really. There's a list of things to aim for style-wise and albums to work on. And if I'm doing an album, it's just ticking off a track each time, and it's very, very boring. It's a bit of a messy pile of
No. This stuff isn't boring. This is the stuff we all do every day. That's what I want to hear about, you know, because it's interesting because I like earlier on in my career, I liked to know when people told me when I was getting a stem request.
Yeah.
For the exact same reason, it gave me the G up, you know, like, Rich, you're doing something right. Someone actually liked what you did. And there's potential for more.
Yeah.
So same thing. If you go, oh, they like that track, let's do more of those.
Yeah.
And then at one point I must have gone through a spat of not winning.
Yes.
I think I had a huge amount of tracks that had stem requests, and not a single one of them won, and that wreaked havoc with my self-confidence. So I said, please don't tell me ever. Just tell me when I win.
And we've all, I mean, definitely, and that is where I have been, and yeah, I mean, I've hit exactly that same point of hearing so many stem requests because I've asked the question to the publisher. I've said, you know, can you tell me if anything's going on? It's kind of that every 6-week thing. I kind of think, okay, I'm kind of going around a circle in the room thinking, is anything going to happen? It's been a few months. I'm not really earning anything. Is something going to?
Yes.
Are we going to find something happening? And then all of a sudden, you know, it tends to be that something will happen. Or, I mean, I've found that just keep putting the stuff in and try and make it the best music you can. But I mean, it's a real balance, isn't it? Of consistent. What am I trying to say? Oh my goodness. Quantity over quality. And I know that's been mentioned, and I think you've mentioned it on the podcast in the early few podcasts that you had. And it is a real balance, isn't there? I mean, there's this just trying to get as much stuff out there as you can, but I don't know, it's trying to keep the quality. And the ones that it's always the ones that I've literally just done in a couple of hours and just kind of chucked off and thought this is rubbish. They're the ones that find the homes, and I still can't understand that. But yeah. It's funny how that happens.
See, I like to think of it like when you stop worrying when you're working on a track, you stop putting that worrying energy into your music. So in those tracks where you spend literally just a couple of hours and you're just in the zone, you're not necessarily criticizing yourself. You're just producing music. You're just, yes, done. There's just a positive flow going into the track.
That's it, yeah.
And when you've spent hours and hours and hours, you think about how many times you'll listen to that going, no, that bass is rubbish. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right. You're just putting that into the track.
I've done exactly that today.
Yes.
And the feeling, oh my goodness. Exactly, that is my issue. So I've had feedback that it's great and everything's great, but I can just, there's just not enough low end, and it's really grind. I can feel it in my head now. I'm thinking, I really want to just put a really thick bassy string in that thing, but yes, what a good time.
Yes, yeah, I think
it's tomorrow.
That's the difficult thing, is letting go, learning to let go of your music, and I like to think I've perfected it to almost to the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like maybe I should care a little bit more, but. Yes. For me, the magic is in working fast and free.
Yeah.
And the moment I start to, like you say, second guess what I'm hearing, all I then start to do is tear down the wall. You know, if I think that bit's rubbish, well then that bit's clearly not working, and then you can just rip it apart.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to do that. Like, that's not my job. That's the publisher. They can do that. You know, they can tell me what needs to be done. And if they sign it off, great. That's on them.
Hilarious. But I think that's what it is with training music in particular. I find that I kind of then model myself around your way of doing things and go, right, I'm going to cut myself off. If I hadn't heard anything for a particular spell, and it's quiet, and I think, right, okay, and I'm asking a publisher a question here and there and saying, oh, you know, is there a sniff on any of the tracks I've given you over the last goodness knows? And then I just cut myself off and think, right, no, let's just forget about it. if a job comes, great. And then, you know, and then a job does come up, and it has. And this is what I keep going through, this process of, right, that's it. I don't care anymore. Let's just see what happens. Forget about it. And then bam, a job comes through, you know, like for a film trailer, and it's brilliant. And it's obviously, you get very excited, and you're kind of going, oh, what did I do right? And you overthink all those, well, I overthink all those things. And then it starts this whole thing off again. So in the next, about 2 or 3 weeks later, I've had that buzz. And then I kind of think, right, maybe I should ask them, you know, is there anything else going on with X, Y, and Z? And it kind of kicks off this whole thinking process again. And then I ask the questions again. And then I kind of go, right, forget about it. Get myself out of that again. And then a couple of months later, it's like, oh, there's another trailer. And it's just this pulling back in and out, which I'm learning to keep more consistent now. But it's quite an addictive process where you want that. It's terrible because it's not what it should be about, but it's that exciting feeling of the placement. Obviously, you should be very happy about having a placement and be very excited, but it's like a drug.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you can't, for me at the moment, I mean, I haven't had lots and lots of trailers away, but I'm very happy to have had any trailer away, really. So it's just a really nice feeling. So there we are. That's my pattern of destruction in my head.
But the thing is, it's so important that you talk about that, you know, that we all talk about that pattern of destruction, because I have done that like so many times. You know, I think I've gotten a handle on it. But my crux is a similar thing. Is crux the right word? I don't know. My issue is a similar thing, where it's social media is like a microcosm of that exact thing.
Yeah.
You post on social media, and then someone messages and comments, and you go, "Oh, this feels nice," and then it starts like a snowball of checking.
Yes. Guilty as charged, I'm afraid.
Yeah. It's just like even just messaging you through Instagram. I was like, "Oh, Ben's replied, yes," and then I'll just keep checking, even though there's nothing for you to reply about. I'm like, "Yep, just gonna keep checking."
There's the little red thing when it comes up. It's kind of, you know, there should be when that happens. It's in the background in my mind. It's like a rainbow with, you know, all these wonderful sounds. It's like, wow, there's a red little number 1 on that inbox. Go press it. See who it is.
Yes,
Richard Schreiber. It is.
Yeah. Mate, yeah. So I mean, how do you cope with that? You know, is it just a case of like just forcing yourself not to contact the publisher? And
yeah, I think it really is a self. I mean, by the time the publisher, you know, I think really the publisher say to me, you know, I mean, I speak often with Silo, who have been great. And somebody I speak to at Silo is just always saying to me every single time, just don't do this. This is just stop doing this. In the nicest way possible. They say to me, look, you're your own worst enemy, because this is like the 6th or 7th time I have asked them the question. So forget about it. Go and do something, have some dinner, go and have some toast. Don't think about this, because this is not the industry to do that in. And then I think I had a long spell of 4 or 5 months, I think, after one of these points of there not being anything, and me asking quite a few times during that time. It really started to get me down. I think I got beaten down by this expectation I had of thinking, well, why isn't this happening yet? And this was quite early on, I think, as well, because I didn't realise that when you're putting music out there into these places, it often takes about a year for a lot of people. I think I've been given the same rule of a year with publishers. So you look, do all this stuff, more from library music initially. And yes, wait for a year's time, and then you'll really start to see stuff happen. And it was a year later that it did start to kind of, there'll be 1 or 2 things happening a month. Which is suddenly great. And I think that because there's so much, I adopted that attitude more so last year, and just decided to get my head down and really focus on one genre, get a few tracks done for this album, do another album, do an EP here, and just concentrate on the music. And then it all started to sort of kick in, I think, the end of last year. And that's been it, really. I think now I'm just doing the same now. So I know I am guilty of going around the circles, and I still do it, but I don't have that desperate feeling now as much because I've put the time in and the work in that the jobs are now starting to become regular. So I can do that and ask the questions and get the feedback from the publishers again. But I don't feel so kind of like, oh gosh, what's happening? You know. So it's much better than it was, and I am starting to learn my lesson much more so. But I am guilty of dipping back in.
So all this, can I just say, so all this while you're also getting like millions of streams, aren't you?
Well, this is the bizarre thing is that there's a lot of streams going on the remix. Basically, it's the remix aliases, I guess I'd call them. That, I mean, they're dancey pop pseudonyms for that territory. One is called the Wild, and one is called Kat Krazy, with K's. Very cheesy name, but years ago, with my manager Duncan, we started this concept of doing because there were a lot of remixes of pop tracks that would be played on Friday and Saturday nights on Radio 1. And across it was Radio 1, it was Kiss Radio and Capital. And people were paying very good fees for remixes. And I really wanted to start an alias where I could do remixes, but basically have a USP with the remix, just make it something really different, but still commercially viable, so it would work on radio. But just do something different, because it just felt like all I was listening to on a Friday and Saturday it's just the same stuff. And I thought I'd try and just spin something on its head a bit and do something a bit different. And initially people didn't know how to, they didn't know what to think. I'd do a bootleg or two to try and get onto radio, and because I obviously wasn't getting remix requests at the beginning because there was nothing to go by. And Duncan then, my manager, found, he talked to major record labels and got me to try a couple of things on spec for people. And one was Bastille, and they had a track called Pompeii, which was a big successful track of theirs. It's what I did a remix of this track, and actually I did something so wacky. And the record label, if you can hear it now, I think it's got about 30 million plays on Spotify now, this remix. But I just decided at the time to just do something that I knew the record labels were not going to approve of, because I thought I'm going to do this really dirgy, they call it a drop. So you have the build up, you have the core. I always put the chorus over kind of a build up where you strip out all the beats. It's a bit like a trailer, really, where I'm trying to think of what part of the trailer it is. It's like an act two. Yeah. And then you'd go into this drop just after the chorus and have a really beaty section, which is like an act 3, but then would go back into the verse. And I went a bit mad anyway, and they came straight back and said, the remix sounds really good everywhere else. It's just the drop sections where you go into this kind of dirgy bass line. We just need you to change that. And I then sat there overnight, thought about it, and I didn't respond. And then I said to my manager the next morning, I said, Duncan, you need to let them run with this. This is going to sound really condescending to the label, but please, can you make them run with this? Because I really, really think that this will work. And we were going backwards and forwards for about, I don't know, it must have been a week. It was about a week of going backwards and forwards and then trying to make me change it. And I was nervous because it was one of the first remixes and they were going to pay me for the remix. If I got it right. And I thought, great, going to afford some food for a few days. Eventually they agreed. Someone else at the record label actually really liked the remix and said, look, let's just go with it and see what happens. And then it basically got played on Radio 1 for weeks and weeks, and was used on, I think, a TV advert for Channel 4. And it just got so much attention that catapulted this remix career. And then it was so bizarre, the impact that then had, in terms of then getting requests. And I would have requests through Duncan. There was a point where we were getting remix requests every single day from major labels. So we were just choosing we didn't want to saturate the saturate the project by taking on everything. So we choose various things, and I remixed Coldplay, and I mean, everyone from Coldplay to Little Mix to One Direction to Rihanna to, I mean, there's such a host of artists, Charlie XCX, and this became my full-time job as Kat Krazy. I mean, for years, and then it still is. But the remixes, and under this other alias I work on, the Wild, I just got different aliases because just slightly different sounds, and again, you just increase the amount of work that you can do from having different aliases, and you know, you have to have a whole different piece of artwork for each name and everything. But yeah, so that became the Wild. I was releasing my own singles, and they started to get some good traction on Spotify through major labels again. And then that became quite a big remix thing as well. And I've recently had a George Ezra remix, Shotgun. I did a remix for that. And again, that's hit the same number now as the Bastille remix did for Kat Krazy. So both of those have hit about 30 million on Spotify. And that's, again, I'm so sorry if I'm coming across pretentious here, because it's no way trying to say, look at me, but I'm just giving you the facts.
Well, this is the thing. What I'm trying to highlight is, like, sometimes you get to this point, and it becomes every day.
It does, and you annoyingly take some of this stuff for granted. It's like you're talking about that. Obviously, my focus is now primarily trailer music focused, just because I'm enjoying it a lot. This is what I enjoy, I think, more than anything else I do. So it's become the full time. But yes, I mean, you mentioned the numbers, and yes, it is bizarre, but those numbers just keep clocking up, and Spotify is bonkers, really, because the numbers just go and go and go. And I mean, it's what I should be doing is focusing some time on releasing more music under those pseudonyms, because the two accounts sat there, two profiles, which are just screaming for regular music, because there's a whole listening audience there waiting. But and it I guess, you know, it sounds greedy, really, but you know, I didn't. You never know how these things are going to pan out. And I think that those two projects have done well in those places, and I probably should get back to them at some point. But I'm just very happy with how things are at the moment, and there's only so much time in the day. So,
yeah. Well, I think also it's really, really important for you to focus on the fact that what you just said, I'm really happy at the moment.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out why. You know, what is causing that happiness? What is causing this feeling of contentment? Did you have that feeling of contentment with all the remixes, or is it different?
Well, I mean, I would say I definitely didn't have this. I mean, I had so much excitement with that. I think as time goes on, I found with having an artist project, I mean, you can make it, I mean, of course you can make it very successful, and I can work at those particular projects and do the right things for those now, maybe to help those carry on. But when you have an artist with, you know, you have to focus on on all the other elements of it. So you've got the social media side, so you're keeping on top of, you know, the TikToks, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the different social media platforms. And it started to drive me a bit mad, I think, with different aliases as well, and it being quite a, trying to think now. I mean, it was the touring element as well, and having to do the live shows. And I'm quite an introvert, and I really just, my favourite time is just being in the studio. And with a lot of that music as well, it's writing sessions to write songs on these things, and you're going into London to different studios with singers, songwriters, and lots of stuff, lots of different people involved in every track. And the reason why I feel very happy at this point of my life doing this sort of stuff is just making music. Often not, I mean, there's barely any vocal tracks I do. It's all just musical. And to see those just musical tracks find homes, that it's just been me just sat here at the end of the garden and just putting something from start to finish, and then seeing it in a, you know, Fast and Furious final trailer. I mean, it's such a bizarre thing, but I think it's the pace of this work. I think I can sort of stroll in here and just feel very relaxed, and I feel like there's not a lot of different opinions going on, and the track isn't being split between different people. And I think it's the style of music as well. Is I know that's always where I've wanted to end up right from the beginning of my musical career. I've always thought I really would want to get into making trailer music. And funny enough, right when I did the deal with Sony for the album deal years and years ago now, I bizarrely just decided to try and make a trailer track, and I made this trailer track and just thought, oh, this has been really fun. And I thought, okay, let's look online, let's find if this is probably rubbish, but I'll find a company, see what trailer music companies are out there. I had no idea. And I found this company called Immediate Music, and I just sent it to their contact email. And I had no idea how great they were doing, and that they were the pioneer of a lot of stuff that has come from, that is now in the training music industry. They kicked off a lot of things. But then I had an email back from someone called Jeff Feynman. And I mean, this was, oh my goodness, this was like, I mean, this is about 10 years ago now, 8 to 10 years ago. I think it must have been. And Jeff Feynman, yes, who you've actually done a podcast with, I've now listened to, which is, it's just bizarre. But he came back and he said, I really love this. I'd like to get a full choir on here, a live choir. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. That would be fantastic. But then I think he then sent a contract over, and I wasn't with an American. I didn't have the PRS side of things set up on the American side. And I think they needed me to do that. And it was lots of contractual bits to look through. And I was just a bit useless at that point, because I was looking through everything thinking, oh, I'm panicked. And I think there was even discussion at some point that there was some interest in this track for a Chris Nolan film that was forthcoming, which I think must have been Batman versus Superman or something. It was around about that time. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Someone had touched on this, and I thought, oh my goodness, but I haven't done this choir bit yet or anything else. But what I didn't realize is that because I was signed recently to Warner Chappell Publishing, that I actually couldn't be doing this stuff, because I had signed my rights into Warner Chappell for 4 years.
As a writer and a producer.
As a writer and a producer, yes. So I was quite naive at this point, but I didn't realise quite how big a figure this Jeff Feynman was, and Immediate Music. I just found the first company I came across and just sent it, because I thought, well, see what happens. That was it. I mean, then I left trailer music. That was my only, because I knew I couldn't really do anything outside of Warner Chappell, so I closed that door and revisited it quite a few years later.
Well, that's obviously like the universe telling you
Exactly.
telling you something important there, Ben. Yes. Do trailer music.
Yeah, it's whispering in the ether.
It's also, it's also a testament to how nice a guy Jeff is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know him. That's all we ever had was email communication, and they seem like really nice people. And then obviously heard your episode with Jeff, and got to really get the insight. I thought, wow, this is the guy that I heard back from all these years ago, and was stuck into a particular deal, and it couldn't happen for that reason. So I was really gutted back then. But then I had to close the door. So yeah, and then there we go.
Ben, you got some great stories in here.
There's a few wild ones.
The wild ones. There we go.
Wow, that was fast.
Hey, I'm a dad. I'm actually allowed to do those jokes now.
Between us, we can have a dad joke at some point. Maybe not for the listeners.
Oh, mate. Right. Well, I'm gonna try to round up, because as you've already highlighted, Ben, this is way past my bedtime.
We're taking liberties here.
No, taking liberties. This is not much. No. So we're going to go straight back in, right? To you. We've gone through your mornings.
Yes.
We've seen the whiteboard.
We've seen
the whiteboard.
You've seen the whiteboard.
I've seen the whiteboard. I've described the whiteboard to the listeners. Yeah. Columns of goals. It's kind of like a mixture of a to-do list and a dream board, really.
Exactly. It's just an absolute mess.
No, stop it.
I like my whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. I have my little own productivity planner. Oh, there it
Oh,
is.
look at this. Weekly
Yeah,
with a little star on the top.
yeah. That's this is something my wife
Uh,
and I designed
oh my
for
goodness,
like
look at this. That is
yeah.
very neat. But
It's
you've got lines.
it's exciting. I've got lines and boxes.
I
It's
need
very
everything
exciting.
bigger. I'm almost like I need a canvas. I'd have something bigger than this because I just need to almost scream out just all the stuff that's going on in the week. It's kind of just an expression.
I like it. I like it. Maybe you should get some of that uh, blackboard paint. Put it on the wall. Chalk it up.
Oh yes, now we're talking. But the acoustic panels probably wouldn't have their place as much.
Okay, so what are your afternoons like? Are you still working in the afternoons? Is it,
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the afternoons, I find that if I can again, we're talking trailer music day structures, really. So in the first part of the day, if by 1 o'clock I can get Act 1 and Act 2 down, for me, doing a trailer piece where I like to be, and then have some lunch, come back in the afternoon, and that is Act 3. And then sort of tidying up Act 1 and 2. So that's, and sometimes I'll go late into the evening. I mean, actually, I haven't done that as much this year. I'd say up until about February, from beginning of last year, I would be working out here later. I'd come back in after putting the kids down and after having some food, come back in here and just crack on. But I think since the work's been coming in some more towards the end of last year, I've decided to actually, as you say, not do the really late nights and actually go for the finishing at sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock, sort of latest. Unless there are briefs obviously that come in sometimes as well. And that sometimes I'll push until later so I can, because obviously you're turning around something often in one day, aren't you, to get to a perfect end result. So therefore needing the extra time. But the afternoons are often, sort of working on Act 3 or occasionally polishing off the second half of Act 2.
nice.
Sort of numbers.
So you've now got to the point where the work's coming in enough, so you don't feel that kind of need,
Yes,
as a custom, to be in the studio in the evening. So what happens at 5:30? Is it all switched off, or does the phone come in with you? What's going on? What's going on?
Well, 5:30 is a funny one sometimes, just because of how this industry works because occasionally with obviously everything happening on the US side, that's, they're waking up sort of 4:30, 5:30, and having publisher, I do a lot of stuff, or being in Los Angeles, that's often when conversations start. And one of the supervisors there will, I don't know, I'll get a message at sort of 10 o'clock with a great idea, at 10 o'clock in the evening, with, we've got this idea, why don't we try this and try that? And it kind of gets my mind buzzing. So sometimes the problem with taking the phone in and engaging still with work, which I still can't detach from that. But you can then get excited by 10 o'clock in the evening, and then sleep is bad because you're thinking of what am I going to do tomorrow morning, or, this idea for a direction. So it really varies at 5:30 onwards every day. Sometimes I'll cut myself off, put my phone on charge and leave it on its charge pad until I go to bed and ignore it. But I have done that on occasion, and I've come over and someone said, "Oh, could we just have this tweak done in the next hour for something that we need yesterday?" As we all know, is the discussions we have with these things. And then I've missed a potential job. So it's a catch-22 really, because sometimes I still force myself just to put the phone away, eat dinner, enjoy seeing the kids before they go to bed, and helping out with bath time, story time, and it's a nice way of actually separating things, as I imagine it is for you too.
It's the phone is like a blessing and a curse all at once, isn't it? It's amazing you can do it, but it means that you take work everywhere.
All
times of the day.
It's too much. It is, and I need to do something about that now. I mean, do you have a moment in the evening where you keep yourself away from the phone or emails?
My wife and I are very aware of our phones. We have 3 kids who are, okay, all kids are of an impressionable age, but 7, 4, and 1, they want attention, and it's kind of hard to be on your phone with that age group, which is good because also you become very aware that you're on your phone when your kids are trying to talk to you. So we kind of do a couple of things. One of them being like no phones after dinner time, which we want to kind of continue with, like so that when our kids eventually reach that terrifying age of having their own phones, we can say everyone's phone away at dinner, as in like from after dinner until the next morning. Phones go in a basket goes somewhere up high, nothing. Because I don't like the idea of it ruling my life and taking me away from my family.
I think that's very important, and it's a good piece of advice actually for me, because thinking about a 4-year-old now, because you've got a 7-year-old as well, and that is when they start to they start to change and ask more questions about what's the phone doing and what are you doing on there, and she's showing a bit more interest now. So I feel sad that that's happening, just starting to. So I think now is probably a good time to enforce something similar.
Yeah, definitely, because also the thing is, like, admittedly, by the time they get to sort of air quotes phone age, they things might have changed.
Yeah.
Again, but if they grow up with us having our phones around them, then they're going to assume that that's normal behavior. And me and my wife will endeavor to not have that as normal behavior.
Yeah, I think that's good. I'm going to take that with me today, definitely. It's been on my mind recently, because it's just I can't stand being there in the evening and sort of checking things constantly. And it's this addictive. It's this addictive thing, seeing if anything ever is going to happen, or it's all work related. I know it's silly, but yeah,
it's not silly, because the feeling behind it is fear.
Yeah,
and I completely get it. Like, scared that you're going to miss a job, and how much a good trailer can place for.
Yeah.
So how important that is for your family's financial well-being. So you have that all sitting on your shoulders. So when you're putting your phone away and saying, "I'm not going to check my phone," then that voice in your head goes, "But what if you don't get a trailer just because you didn't send a stem?"
I know. This is the catch. This is the thing, and it has kind of happened. So that's
and it will happen. But the other side of the coin is, if they really want something, they can wait 12 hours.
We are all human beings.
Yes, exactly.
Good point.
Or the other thing is having an arrangement with your publisher where they have a custom composer to take over.
Yes.
So I don't do any custom work anymore because of the fact that I didn't like work starting off again at 6.
Yeah. That's because of the American time again, and that's definitely that's been a tough one, I think, because for me, I haven't been doing much custom work, and luckily the stuff I've been putting in, just the original music into albums or EPs, etc., are the ones that are finding the homes now. But I'd say all my sort of bigger jobs are all custom jobs. And it's always the stuff I find the biggest pressure, and always think I'm definitely not going to get this, because I'm fighting against, Tom, Dick and Harry who have been doing it all this time. I don't know who I'm against, and it's always a bit loose, and you never know things for months on end. But frustratingly, and luckily those jobs have pulled off quite a few times for whatever reason. Not because I'm a fantastic producer or anything. My production is way away from a lot of the production I hear that are getting placements, but they have just, for whatever reason, gotten the editor's attention and worked for those things. And I think I still do those customs. I know what you mean about the custom world, because it can be soul destroying, but because I've had those jobs, and over the last year I've just been carrying on that side of things as well. even though I said to myself, I'm not going to do this for too much longer. Then the job goes, oh no, you got that one, or you've got this one. And I think it's because of that, really.
And then that injection of excitement happens again.
There it is.
So, dude, so you've taken us pretty much through the full spectrum of your career to where you are now. And I've got a kind of a feel for Ben Preston's day, which is awesome because a life in the day of Ben Preston. I love it. It's fascinating. But I'm also, so much of this is about helping each other. That's why we talked about, your panic attacks. That's why we talked about your struggles with COVID and the lockdown, et cetera, because it's so important that we help each other. Because my education in the music industry was so very much, the record labels are going to screw you over. Everybody is your competition. Look after yourself.
Yeah. And
that has never done me any good. Because even with a contract, people can take advantage. So
it's a contract these
exactly.
That's true. That is true.
Cynical side aside, what advice would you give to someone, and this is important, who is struggling in their creative journey?
So someone that's struggling, I would say that you just need to keep going. I think if you're enjoying making music, whatever it is, whether it's composing music or doing dance music, pop music, whatever it is, I think if you enjoy it and you get good feedback from it and you can get yourself to a point where, you get either a publisher or a record label or a music library company who likes your music. And the only way you're going to find that out is by sending this music out to all different places and finding out in the first place. If you're getting that interest from any of those, even if it's a small amount, use that as that kind of beacon of I'm trying to think of hope, that interest.
Small wins.
Yeah, the small win, because I think that's the thing is, if there is anyone interested in what you do, believe in yourself. I think the one thing I've always done, and as you've seen, I've sort of taken you through the journey of, I focused on doing music, pop music, and I focused on dance, but I tried to, obviously got to certain points with all of these things. And then I decided a year and a half to 2 years ago, right, trailer music. This is what I wanted to do years ago. And I just thought it's going to be tough. I'm going to get there. And I think it's just having that mentality that it's going to happen, not in I'm trying to think, not in a, oh my goodness, my words fail me today.
Not in a blind,
pretentious again. So not in a pretentious manner of thinking,
or an arrogant
I'm going to get there. Yeah. So I think you just build this belief in yourself and think, I can make music and I really enjoy it. And if you get that real enjoyment from it, you just need to take yourself on the journey and teach yourself as much as you can as you go through, and just stay firm in your belief that things will be okay and things will happen. It's perseverance. And from my experience of just, I think I'm a classic example of someone who just keeps throwing mud at the wall until something sticks. And if you get that one thing that sticks, and for me, for the trailer stuff, when I started making trailer music and then I listened back to what I started doing, it just sounds awful. And it was I just had no idea what I was doing. And I think, but I just kept going, and eventually, you just trial and error, and then one thing does stick. And it was one trailer placement in the trailer world. And yes, and then that feeling that gave me was just like, right, this is definitely what you need to focus on. And it was a long time until anything happened from then. But it's a difficult thing to try and preach. But yeah, it's just thinking this thought in your head of just, this is going to happen and things will be good. If you've got those little nuggets of good response from somebody, or someone says, yes, you're on the right path, or can it help advise you or nurture you into, even like us two having a chat, or if you were to tell me a piece of music that maybe do this, or seek advice, be really vulnerable, be open-minded, and listen to people who are doing the same and ask questions to as many people as you can. Again, this is very waffly, but I think it's more just having that belief in yourself when you're down or not feeling creative. just give yourself some space. Take the rest of the afternoon off. Go and think about something else. Listen to a Richard Schreiber podcast. Get yourself invigorated, and just believe in yourself. And I know that's so many people say the same thing, but I really try and adopt that in everyday things that I do. And just, it's not a cocky thinking of just, I'm going to get this. It's going to be fine regardless of today. It's going to happen. But just for me, that is, when I think like that, over time, things have happened, and they continue to happen from having this way of going about things, really.
Yeah. Excellent advice. It's not waffly.
It may be a bit higgledy-piggledy.
It's excellent advice, though. And we can't hear that enough. It might be weeks, months, potentially even years before something sticks.
Yeah.
But if you enjoy it, that's going to get you through.
And that's the important. I think it's the enjoyment factor. As soon as if you're just doing something, you're constantly thinking, I'm actually not, you're forcing something. It's difficult, though, to get caught in a rut, though, and think, is this me not enjoying something, or am I stuck in a rut with something and do I need space to then enjoy it again? It's quite difficult to know when that's going to come back. But your best thing is to go and, again, is to just do, I don't know, take a space, go for a walk, get a different perspective, and then maybe come back. If it's trailer music, then go and do a load of researchy bits on trailer music and composers, and go and watch a few different trailers. There's lots of trailer music cues that you can listen to on Spotify from lots of publishers that have released the music. Listen to the structure. Again, you've heard all this stuff probably before, but just force yourself to. Sometimes you do need to force yourself to. You need to force creativity sometimes to get that creative spark. Some people sometimes think, oh, it would just come to me, but sometimes you need to force yourself by going out there and doing things, researching things, listening to things like this podcast, and I think you have to force it as well. So it's, sometimes you force it, sometimes you don't, but sometimes it does need a bit of work to get those juices flowing, so to speak.
Ben, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, man. I really very much appreciate you taking the time to talk about it. Also being so open. And I think that's so important for musicians and creative people to hear other people who have achieved success, hearing them being open about the difficulties we've struggled, as well as the great things that we achieve. I very much appreciate you taking the time, dude.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm seriously grateful for you getting me on board, and privileged to be on. It's after listening, as I say, to your series on the Trailer Music podcast, it's bizarre now to be sat here talking to you. So it's been really enjoyable, and yes, thank you very much for getting me involved.